I was saying, I'm like looking at you like, don't forget to turn your mic on.
I'm looking. All three of them are on. Good job.
Someone confirm. Robin, can you confirm that she turned all three of them on? Yay.
Yes.
Thank
Robin
you.
says AV check. Thank you, Robin. Yeah, happy Tuesday.
I can't believe it's Tuesday. You were just saying before we got on that your entire day went by in a blur.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I mean, I feel like I did some things. I got some things done, and they were things that shouldn't have taken me like 8 hours to do, but somehow they did. So
I mean, you did reading.
I did my reading, and I finished my
Yes.
reading early today.
I did not. So you exercised your brain.
Yes, I was not reading at 6:59 our time.
I might have been, but one of the reasons is because I because we did like a double batch of chapters, which I understand we may not get through all of them tonight, but I got a little carried away in kind of some of the rabbit holes I went down while I was like
I'm wondering if you went down some of the same ones I did.
maybe, but we've already found out that that often works better when I end up sharing them anyway. So
Well, I
um
have some to share, and I think I set things up today so they'll be easier to share, but
we shall see.
we shall wing it, shan't we?
Shan't we? Well, before we get all involved in things, let's get, some of the housekeeping underway. And that is that for March 4th next week, we are going to read our last batch of chapters, believe it or not. So we're going to do chapters 18 through 21, which is pages 231 through 268. Now, that being said, I got to tell y'all, when I was looking at the last batch, I don't know if anyone else has noticed yet. When you finish, there is a QR code in the back to see more of the Dress Diary book.
I don't have that.
It's a dead code.
Oh no. Yeah, I don't have
It does
that at
not
all.
work.
Oh no, wait a minute. I do.
Well, you should double check it because when I did it, it's a dead code. Which I was like, this book isn't old. How is the code already dead?
Yeah, it's only from last year.
So half of me is wondering, like, maybe if we like reached out to her in some way or the publisher or something.
Yeah. I have it on my list to reach out, and well, at the path to where is paved with good intentions. But yeah, I thought that would definitely be worth reaching out about. Yeah, here it is.
Well, and I'm also like, why did you wait till the end of the book to tell us that? Like, why couldn't this have been up front and we could have been, yeah, because it says like discover more pictures. And like, I'm literally like, I looked at it and went, I could have been discovering more pictures all this time. So anywho, so yeah, so if we don't, yeah, Robin also said she tried. It's a dead code. That's annoying.
Well, Robin, do you have the same volume that that Jill has? I'm wondering. I mean, I can't imagine that it's any different than because between the U.S. and the. Why don't you do the announcements and I'll try it and see.
Okay. So let me get my my Sharon up here. So we'll just do the whole thing. Yeah, boom. So February's gone. It's already time to look at another month, believe it or not. So we're looking here at March. And as you can see, there's not a whole lot of like extra exciting things going on like other calendars have been, although I'm going to tell you April is going to be very colorful because there's a lot of travel going on in April. And we're working on that one right now. But as it stands right now, we have next Tuesday scheduled as our last book day. If we have to like extend it into the following week, it's not a big deal because we go into our free period then, where it's all shenanigans all the time. We also have 2 stitching glitches scheduled, which we've been talking that we might do one of those a little bit differently than others, but by all means, you guys, it will stay the same where you show up with whatever you want to be doing on the flip side. And then we had announced on our last stitching glitch that it was time to tell you guys about the next book and project that we're working on. So the next book that we're doing is going to be Portable Patchwork by our friend Pam Weeks at the New England Quilt Museum. It has some fun things that are going to come along with it. I was like making this little like thing at like the last minute before we went live because I was like, oh my God, I need something to show people. Um, so the best thing here would be buying the book directly from Pam because she does sell her own books. I have on here 35-ish just because she's just double checking on shipping, and this price would include shipping. So it might end up being like 36, depending on what the medium mail shipping is. And then also to order directly from her is her email, pamela.weeks@gmail.com. And if you just like put in the subject line like portable patchwork, she said her book should get into her on Friday and she
Awesome.
can start shipping it herself. And also, you can put your email if you want her to autograph your book. So
Yeah.
that's fun. Now, on top of that, which I sort of kind of have something to show you, but not totally. It's is this that I'm working on, although it's so hard to make it bigger. That's annoying. Is there a this is supposed to be a reel, which is why it looks small. I can make it big and just pew. So Stephanie and we're gonna host a virtual lecture put on by Pam that goes with her book. We're gonna do it before her book, and it's Quilt as You Go. It's older than you think, also known as portable patchwork. And her little blurb here is it covers the various types and techniques with images of examples dating to the early 1800s. This picture right here is from when portable patchwork was the exhibit, which I think most of the quilts are owned by Pam, was in the New England Quilt Museum. And then Stephanie and I were talking about that we're pretty sure it was up when Mary Fonz came for a visit. So we might have to go and look for that episode. But it's going to be April 12th, which is a Saturday. It's going to be 6 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be private, which is why one reason it's a paid event. It's also a paid event because Pam is being paid to give a lecture. So this is the real deal, folks.
Yeah.
The real deal. And I think potentially we're gonna do it as like a private YouTube stream with Pam on Zoom here with us doing her thing, and it'll be 50 minutes. And there's just a little like fun patch that she sent in.
Yeah.
So I
I love the patch the portable patchwork. It's just my favorite thing in the world. So I'm very excited about this. Even though I already own the book, I've read it, I've made these kinds of quilts. I still think it's so fascinating. And she actually has a quilt that's made out of actual pot holders. And that
true
would
story.
might be one of my favorites because it's so
True story.
ridiculous.
I also believe too that you had mentioned that you had a copy for giveaway.
I do, and I guess we probably need to talk about that. I will be picking it up from my mother in a couple weeks. So, yes, my
Mhm.
mother has offered it up to us as a giveaway because somehow she bought 2 copies. I was like, it's such a good book. You bought it twice. So,
Robin, you know what? I will have to check and see if Pam will allow us to show it after. Um, I have a feeling the answer will be yes, but let me just double
yeah.
check because I don't actually think that that's something we talked about. Do you remember, Stephanie, if we did?
We didn't. I didn't think about it, and I should have because I know that's often one of my questions, because I
Mhm.
can't always make it to things. So, yeah. I mean, I guess we can't say for sure right now because we do need to talk to Pam, but my guess is she'd probably be okay with us leaving it up for like a week or two for people
Yeah,
that,
because it'll
yeah.
be private. So only people that have paid and will have a link will be able to get into it.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, you could also just tell a kid like you can't have a birthday that day. You gotta watch Pam or make that be
Priorities.
like, yeah, be like, hey, we're gonna do something fun. We're gonna watch somebody give a lecture.
It's just an hour. We'll get to your cake and presents after that.
Yeah. So if when we do her lecture on the 12th, that means that we will let me just look at a calendar real quick. That we will give the first assignment. Where's my thing? The first assignment for her book on the 15th. So, for people that, don't want to order right away and want to wait for us to just like get things together to do this giveaway, like you can wait some time because you'll have you that's like almost 2 months really to wait because that won't be until the third week of April that we give the first assignment. So you've got some time.
Yeah.
Other
It'll
than
be here
that,
before we know it, but
yeah, I know. I think that's it for my announcements. We got a
yeah.
lot, we got a lot to dive into here.
Yeah, I got nothing. So let's go.
Wait, let me get myself to my notes here. These chapters were like surprisingly like short in my opinion in terms of like how deep they got into some things.
Yeah, and like, I mean, the chapter of like about when they were in China, I was like, I almost feel like she could have just thrown a few pages on the end of their Singapore chapters and just be done with it because it's literally like no idea what happened there. So I'm like, well, that was a waste of chapter. But some of the other chapters, though, so fascinating.
Yeah, so starting with chapter 13, the Mrs. Wrigley. It made me think of Wrigley gum.
I know, right? Um, so I don't know if you had something you wanted to start with. I have a couple things in here that I just thought were. I actually have
This is so
a
wait,
picture
this
for
is the
one thing.
one too that is this the one where it's a green swatch? I'm like looking through at my thing real quick. Did you figure out which swatches belonged with this chapter?
I don't know that any do.
Yeah, so
Are
there
there
are
some?
Wrigley's. There are Wrigley's here. So on this page with the
Oh,
green,
yes.
she goes. I don't know
Okay.
why she does a separate chapter later for Hannah
Yeah, so
when
that's
there's
well,
Wrigley's
yeah,
on this
because
page.
she does the whole thing on the costume ball. So that's one. But I think
Hmm.
this up here is a Wrigley. I guess
Uh,
we could look at the thing in the back that tells us what they are.
oh yeah, yep, 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 yep. She's
I only specifically looked for because I knew I'd seen that green one that we're not in that chapter yet, but
actually
um
it looks like there's more than one on there that's a Wrigley. It looks like the
mhm,
two. Ooh, come on, focus. Yeah, this top and the middle here is Wrigley as well.
yeah.
I
Um
need a magnifying glass.
I know. Some of these are so hard to they're so hard to read, but um what I thought was really interesting was sort of the mentions. So on what's page 177 for me, I think our pages have matched up. The only thing that didn't match up for us was the where the color plates appeared.
Mhm,
But they show this. She shows this evening fashions 1860,
mhm,
Les modes parisiennes, um, and then she moving on. She talks about 179. She mentions the Watteau pleat. This is some of the stuff that's coming up from like older types of dress. And
mhm.
the Watteau pleat, I actually pulled up some pictures of it. It was very common with like Marie Antoinette and those types of dresses.
Mhm.
So let me share that really quick. Because I was like, I've heard of this before. I didn't know what it was. Boop, boop, boop. Okay.
That is shockingly not something that I pulled up.
Hey. Okay. I'm sticking us up here in the corner. But you can see it's this. It's like almost like it's not really a cape. It doesn't operate as a cape because the sides of it are like entwined into the dress. They're like part of the
I don't think
dress.
you have anything on the screen.
Uh-oh.
I see your desktop.
Oh, farts. Why is it doing that?
Farts.
There we go. I put it in the wrong screen. So we're up here in the corner. So it's not really a cape, but it's kind of got this cape like attitude about it. So it, like, if you looked at the pieces of this dress, like before they're sewn together, this
Mm-hmm.
back part is literally like this big long piece with like dress sides on it. And once you get all these pleats up together, then you end up with this, like, this thing down the back. This
Mm-hmm.
one unfortunately is sort of sideways, but you can see like this stuff falling off the back. It's very so late 1700s was when this was common. Marie Antoinette is like those kind of big pannier like this. You see the big panniers on this dress,
Mm-hmm.
and would have that kind of thing. So, and then we're gonna get to the costume ball, but I just thought it was really interesting how like this was just unexpected to me, I guess, when in talking about these fashions, because this is not the kind of stuff you actually see at that time, in that time period.
Mm-hmm.
So the mention of this kind of stuff is interesting to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right, now where's
I
my stop sharing thing?
I on are you did you say you stopped sharing? On 179, um talking about the Queen, the ladies
Oh, there we
newspaper.
go. That's what I was trying to do.
What were you trying to do?
I was on the wrong screen. um,
I have no idea what's happening right now.
just never mind. Never mind. And now I just can't stop sharing. Um, I don't know. I guess if you share something, it'll hopefully work out.
So I looked up, oh my God, I almost hit leave. Um, oh wait, just do the whole thing here. So I
There we
looked
go.
up this this Queen Ladies newspaper. And what I found interesting up top here is it, it was the Court Chronicle, or simply The Queen, was a magazine created in 1864 in London. The title became Queen in the 1950s, then Harper's and Queen, and then it became Harper's Bazaar. Did you know
Oh,
that?
no, I did not.
I was like,
Fascinating.
that's that's shocking to me. Um, but because we were just talking about Paris and fashion,
Mm-hmm.
here's one of the plates that it was talking about. It was mostly like pictures from it that I was specifically looking for.
Yeah.
Um,
So this
ah,
is so what those pictures. I think this is the
hmm
second bustle era. I think. But yeah. So now you've got these, like, you got the big butt, yeah, the giant butt bustle, versus some of these, like the smaller. I get the dates mixed up, but there's two different bustle eras, and one has this
This,
ridiculous giant thing, and then the other bustle era has like a smaller, more demure bustle.
yeah, this one's 1873. Um, I was just thinking, if we're just looking if there was, no, there was not something else in particular there. I just loved this Queen Victoria.
Yeah,
Like
that's really cool.
this actually almost looks like the cover of something that you might find today, of something like an independent is like publishing a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just like, and the fact that it becomes Harper's Bazaar, I was like, wow, that's kind of bizarre. Um, the other thing in here, let me go back to my notes that's full of stuff. I thought it interesting on 180 here that in 1951 the census,
Yes.
the clothing trades employed 28,000 men, 84,000 women as tailors, dressmakers, shoemakers, and milliners.
Now let's break that down, because no women were employed as tailors.
Well, I mean, of course,
Yeah,
it's like
well, yeah. I mean, I'm just making the point. I mean, like, there's a lot of women in this, like, quote unquote job market,
Mhm.
but the women are only dressmakers and milliners. They are not generally tailors and shoemakers. Now, there might have been women possibly working in a workshop. If you've got a man who is a tailor or a cordwainer, his wife might be involved in the business, but you're not gonna find women out there like, I'm a tailor, because that was not open to women. So
Mhm.
I thought that was interesting how she says it this way. She kind of conglomerates the data, but it doesn't give you the full picture of really what's going on, because it's like 84,000 women. Oh, look at all those jobs they have. No, you probably have like 80,000 milliners. The
Janet,
ladies
I'm
love
not
to
sure
make the
why.
hats.
Janet, I'm not sure why you're asking if I have an iPhone with a Zoom feature. I do have an iPhone. It does have Zoom on it, but I currently use it to watch the stream so I can see that your comments are, but I'm not sure at what point that was a relevant question for me because I didn't see it at the time.
Oh, it might
Sorry.
be. Yeah, it might be because she thought you were pulling this up on your phone.
Oh,
Before we move on, page 181, I just love this mention about the etiquette manuals, and it talks about Punch magazine, which is kind of a well known thing, and it says it ran ran a series of sketches called The Side Scenes of Society, which followed the exploits of a newly moneyed family called the Spangle Lackers. I thought that was so funny because I'm
that
like,
was
you
cute.
totally see this kind of thing today, where you're just making fun of people, and some things really don't change. I thought that was great.
That's true. So Janet said not Zoom, the program, but a magnifier. That is interesting. I did not know that. I guess also too, if you just like went like in your picture and just blew it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, this is why we need people around is to inform us how to use the things in our life that we are clearly not using the way that we should be using. Um, anyways, the one of the reasons I really enjoy this chapter is because it ends up talking quite a bit about Spitalfields. And if anyone has watched the show Victoria with Jenna Coleman, have you watched it, Steph? I know I've asked you this.
I haven't. I'm familiar with it.
Fired.
I just.
It's so good. It's so good. Jenna Coleman as Victoria is mwah. And they like stopped it at season 3 or 4 or something like that. And they were gonna do more, and then like they just haven't said anything. And I'm like, are they just waiting for her to get older? Like like they ended with Albert's death and then but they left it on the clip. Anyways. So hello, where's my cursor? Thank you. So one thing that I found, it's not the same time period because this comes into the 18 oh, no, I'm sorry, it might be the 1700s. What did I have written on there? Did I have it written? Yeah, 1700s. So it's earlier than we're talking about in the book here, but I found a swatch book.
Of course you did.
Yeah, it's the Lehman's original silk designs. And even though I was like, oh, it's not the right period, it's much earlier. I was like, it's so pretty that
Oh
we need to look
yeah.
at it.
Yes.
I love how they would do this with books too. I know we don't really do this much anymore, but like how they have the flap that comes.
Yeah, it's like a folio type of deal that folds out. Yeah.
Also, like this print, I would not place this print in the 1700s. It looks way too modern for my eyes.
This looks like some stuff you find today even. I
Yeah.
could think of a few surface designers that have that style of
Hmm.
the way that they draw and paint roses and
Yeah, so
flowers.
just here, the oldest surviving set of silk designs in the world. James Lehman's album contains 90 ravishingly beautiful patterns created in Stewart Street, Spitalfields between 1705 and 1710 when he was a young man. And it's part of the Victoria and Albert. Of course it is, because like everything over there is. Oh, I'm sorry, it's pronounced lemon or lemon or limon. I don't know.
Le Mans. I'm sure. I'm certain
I
it's
mean,
French.
I mean the settlers in Spitalfields are from France. So,
That's right. They're Huguenots, right?
yeah, they're from France. So there's more to this, my dear. Don't look away. Look at the pineapple. Where
I
else do
know.
we find pineapples?
In
We
Baltimore
see
album
them.
quilts.
We see them. Well, more than just Baltimore album quilt.
Pineapples
Yes,
are very popular.
Robin agrees it looks like a very common pattern.
Very common
Now,
pattern.
this yellow, do you think this yellow is as yellow as originally yellow, or could it have been more of like a gold,
I
or
don't know.
was it meant to
It's
represent
pretty
a gold?
bright. I mean, it's pretty bright. It's obvious. Like it has not. Whatever this is has not experienced any type of like oxidation kind of damage, and it's certainly not hit with light. So I would say it's probably close to what it originally was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very.
These are very cool looking.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
all of this looks very modern
Hmm.
in
Well, and it just
context
goes to
because
show you.
we can't see the whole piece, but just these
Hmm.
pieces look very modern.
Well, and I mean, like, look at this peacock. It just goes to show you too that kind of like everything old is new again.
Hmm.
Um, because I feel like there's definitely some designers out there that have designed very similar things, and for all we know, have never even seen these. We're getting on the Paisley wagon
There
here.
is very strange stuff on the in the side column. Memories of a Cockney Sikh.
Yeah,
I bet that's interesting, but how totally different than what we're looking at.
there you Spitalfields life books. Um, yeah, and it's not just that they're very interesting, but they're very diverse too. Like they don't all look similar. Um, and I can just imagine, I mean, like this, we're definitely starting to kind of deviate into something. I mean, that looks like that reminds me of chins.
Hmm. Yeah, this sort of botanical type of drawings.
Hmm. But yeah, I'll put these links into the description below, but I just thought like any chance to look at a swatch book would be exciting. Hold on, get rid of that. Get rid of that. Okay. So then I've also, because I was looking up potential when I was looking up silk and Spitalfields and things, of course, like you're gonna end up finding like some quilts. And the V&A has more stuff on their online collection than I actually expected that they would. So I didn't think anyone would mind looking at this and all these images and things. And this one is made by the actress Fanny Sterling, using fabrics from the costumes she had worn during her career on the stage. She worked
That's
on this
pretty
quilt
cool.
during waits in her dressing room.
That's pretty cool.
I think that is pretty cool. It's definitely giving crazy quilt vibes, that's for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But
yeah,
far
because
more
of
controlled.
the types of fabrics
Mm.
that they are.
Well,
Yeah.
in the stitches
Hmm.
here, but far more controlled because I mean it's not like all embellished and just, but yeah, like look at all these different, like, there's so many different fabrics on here. That's a pretty good photo. The binding's interesting.
Hmm.
I wonder how they know that she made it. Like,
There
did
must
it
be
come
some type of extant record that maybe would say.
Well, maybe like did the family donate or did
No,
she?
it could
Ooh,
be.
I like that. Look at that. Hmm. I always just picture what it might be like to work with some of these fabrics because they're so slippery and slinky and
Yeah.
um,
Some of them are their enemies for sure.
yeah, I
Now, what is
guess
that at the top? Is that damage or is that something that's sewn on? Like,
this
yeah, what is that?
um
Is it some kind of
well, all
like,
this red definitely looks like some kind of
yeah,
damage,
is that
but
some type of like festooning? Like, I don't know, like some type of like,
I don't know.
it looks like a big gob of fabric. That's,
Yeah, it almost kind of looks like, do you remember like in like the 90s or something, they had that thing for kids where you could make flowers out of paper?
I
No,
wasn't a
I
kid in
haven't.
the 90s, so I don't
I
know.
know, but that doesn't mean that you didn't see the commercials. But like it kind of reminds me of that. And I wonder what like all this red is.
Yeah, I wonder if is that maybe some of those fabrics in there that bled
Could it
or
be like this guy right here?
yeah, or did something. I'm
That
even
like
thinking
came apart?
like yeah.
Oh yeah, this looks like maybe it was a problem
Yeah,
as
that whatever that
well.
fabric is. And I mean, you think fabrics for the theater are not necessarily going to be like high quality, dress fabrics. They, like the theater I think
There's
has
sure.
always been kind of staple it and glue it together.
Hmm.
Just because it's well, I mean, they're theater costumes depending on how long a run is going can be worn over and over and over and over. So they do have to constantly be fixing them, but
Mhm.
they can also take shortcuts because it's not real clothing. You're not out there on the street
And you're
with
not
it. They can,
seeing it up close.
yeah, they can hide stuff about it. So my guess is these were not, at least the dye was not fast in these fabrics,
Hmm.
perhaps.
Yeah, even like some like half of me wonders like could it have been stuff that's coming like from the back? Because like that's pretty intense, and you can kind of see some red through here,
Well,
or
I
maybe
mean,
whatever's on the inside. Oh
yeah,
yeah, look, there's red inside here.
yeah. She could have been using like some kind of red fabric as a foundation too, maybe for some of them.
Hmm. Oh, here we go. Worked by the great actress Fanny Sterling, owned by her. You think of all the good pictures, they could have gotten a better picture of this.
Given by her to Mrs. something. Is it Berwick?
Beverly, I think it's Beverly.
Yeah, Beverly, but the last name is that Berwick?
Bewick?
Berwick? I
Like
don't know.
Berwick? Berwick,
Who?
maybe?
Who? What? Who
Something
present?
who presented to something L. Bales of the old
Ba-
Vi.
Bayless of the old Vi, or the old Vic? Is it the old Vic? I bet it's the old Vic.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting. Oh
Very
my,
interesting.
that red. Is this the, wow, this looks like it was witness to a murder.
It does. Yeah, my guess is though it's something in there that's blood all over the place.
Yeah, let's
Um,
see. Mhm. Let's just see if there was. I like took like a super quick gander through here. There's a sleeve. Is that a quilted sleeve? Oh yeah,
hmm.
from 1740 to 70. Detachable sleeve. Quilted cream colored silk with lamb's wool wadding. That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and those
how's
are oh gosh, what's the name of it? Um, they're like pagoda sleeves.
I have no idea what that means.
It's a sleeve that's shaped like that, a bell shaped sleeve. Typically, they'd kind of end like right here.
Hmm. Just curious. Oh, what is that? Um, well, that's one pretty early. It's, oh my God. I I I want him in my room. He is really cute. I was hoping that potentially when I was like looking at this that there might have been something that says like, where did I end up here? Like made from Spitalfield silk or something. I'm just curious like what's like on the okay, well that's definitely not. Wow. There's a whole ass bed. Okay.
Yeah, we're getting into other eras here, so
Yeah, I will put this in the thing as well. And then so because this becomes relevant later as well because we get into that the costume ball things like that. But I did find a short video of 100 dresses of the 1800s, if that
okay.
is of all.
How short is it? Because I've got
It's
mad
the
piles of stuff for the costume ball.
it's 7 minutes.
Okay, can
Um,
we maybe save that for just a minute so
yeah, we can
we
save
can
that.
um on page 183 she talks about the fact that there was only about 14 or 15 visitable ladies in the settlement. And I thought about that and I'm like, yeah, there's only like isn't there only like 200 and some people in the settlement? It's like a pretty small group of
And most
people.
of them were men. Yeah.
Yeah, most of them had, well, I would say most of them were not single women. So you've got, only 14 or 15 women that are single women. So that's kind of interesting to me. I kind of wonder, like, I guess on one hand, I'm thinking like, what lucky women, you know, like you could all these men, you know, but then again, you're talking about sailors who haven't been to land in a while, so, but you know, it must be grand being one of only a handful of eligible women when you've got all of these men who, you know, want to visit. But
So
on the
wait,
other hand,
does visitable mean eligible women? Because I was looking at that from the perspective of other women.
no, this is evening entertainments. Um,
Hmm.
the party, I mean, yeah, that's kind of what it means, I think.
Oh, because I was gonna say like you because you can't visit married women, but it's only like so it's only like calling hours for the
Well,
reason
I mean, to
of
me, because this is
courting.
dancing and parties and stuff, I mean, to me, this
Mhm.
kind of spelled out like these are the women that parties and dances would be held for. Um,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, that's a good question, Janet. Visitable ladies is underlined. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Anyway, um,
Beats me.
the next thing that I saw in here that I love is the passamentaries on page 184. And I actually covered passamentaries one time on my stream where we looked at, it's been over a year ago. We looked at a passamentary factory in England that just closed, like literally less than a year ago they closed, and they had been open since the
Really?
1800s. Yeah, and it's really interesting. And I didn't take the time to find the video. I can maybe do it for next time, but
Hmm.
they literally show, I mean, some of the passamentaries, like when you see like, I think the quickest way to think about a passamentary is like if you imagine like kind of big heavy furniture and that little braid that goes along like the edge of a, you know, a skirt on furniture along the edge of a an ottoman or something.
Hmm.
That's passamentary. And so think about apply that kind of stuff to clothing. So basically what it is it's woven. They're little strips that are woven, and the what I guess would be the weft is silk threads and little cords and all that stuff. So you'd see them kind of, you know, that was so popular. And these little workshops, I mean, you literally see them like doing the warping like across a football field sized room practically to make this passementary, and then they would weave it very fast because it's only like yay wide. So it was such an interesting video. I'll have to find it for next time because I think
Yeah, I
it's
feel like such an underachiever in life, let me tell you.
yeah, seriously. So I don't know. Did you have anything else about this chapter? Because I mean, I found probably the most interesting stuff in the next two chapters.
Yes, I no, I do not. Other than a video, but that's kind of relevant for this whole batch of stuff we're looking at. So,
Yeah, so we can come back to that other video
hmm
if we have time. So I feel like I don't know how you guys feel and how much you knew about mourning, but I feel like there's a couple things in here that kind of was I was like, huh. So walking into this book, my mindset, this whole idea of, you know, the mourning industrial complex was you know, it was kicked off by Queen Victoria because she went into lifelong mourning for Albert. And
hmm
then here in the
hmm
United States, not like we didn't necessarily follow the same type of mourning ritual and rules as they did in England because our class system's different. But the funeral industry, the funerary industry, seems to have come from the Civil War, and there are definitely things about the Civil War that, like, the reason why we embalm people comes from the Civil War. But just mourning in general, I'm looking here, and on page 189, she's talking about Jay's mourning warehouse and Pew's mourning warehouse, and I'm like, warehouse? Like what?
I actually pulled something up for Jay's Morning Warehouse.
Oh, awesome. So,
Yeah.
so this is early 1840s. Well, Albert didn't die till 1861. So we're talking like 20 years prior to Albert's death. We've got this like funerary, you know, like
Well, yeah,
capitalist
it's already
thing
a
going.
bustling industry.
Exactly. So I'm like, now granted, Victoria definitely had a lot to do with these rules and things, but I just like this surprised me so much.
Well,
Yeah.
especially like
So
for when it listed out some more of like the how long you're supposed to mourn
Yes. And
certain people.
thankfully in the United States, I don't think it ever reached that level of. But I mean, no wonder she was just like, you know what? These rules are so ridiculous. I'm just gonna wear black for the rest of my life and be done with it.
Well, I also kind of feel like potentially, and I don't, this is just my personal opinion. I didn't look this up or anything, but I wonder if maybe she made it okay to like decide to live in mourning for the rest of your life and not because because like women have always been society has always had us so focused on marriage and family and this and a lot of times depending on your class obviously if your husband dies you might have to remarry in
Mm-hmm.
order to have income and the this and the that and obviously with queens life is a lot different but I'm just like because we see other like period dramas and things with other kind of widows in perpetual mourning and I'm like, would
Yeah,
that be been one
I'll
of the first kind of choices, maybe? They
I'll
were
be
able to
honest with you.
make?
I in some way in so much of this morning stuff is a class. It's a class situation. I mean, your middle and
Hmm.
lower class people. I mean, they might have had a dress that was black to wear for a period of time. Um, but I'll be honest. Here in the United States and in England, widows had more rights than married women or single women.
Hmm.
When you were a widow, you could inherit property, you could take over your husband's business, etc., etc. So I kind of wonder if all of this mourning stuff might have created somewhat of a diversion for women to like stay sad. Don't realize that you now have property, money, and a business. I just feel like there was something in there where they creating these kind of rules for women. These men didn't have these rules. Men, it was like wear black suit for a little bit, and then go marry another woman. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
for women, I mean, we're talking like multiple, like years and years of mourning. And I mean, that's not to say that you couldn't be running your husband's business or doing whatever, but I still feel, I don't know why. It just nags at me that there's some kind of something in there like keeping the widows down. You know what I mean?
Even the widows. The morning's not enough. We need more things.
So
Um,
I want to know about Jay's mourning
yeah.
warehouse.
So I grabbed because I was looking for photos and I grabbed a Wikipedia article that just has a few photos on it. That's interesting because one of them's an ad. There's really not a lot on here, but we've got the London General Mourning Warehouse was a mourning warehouse on Regent Street. It was established by William Chickell Jay in 1841, so it was called, also known as Jay's. It sold all types of goods needed for funerals and the elaborate mourning of the Victorian era. So we've got like a street view here of Regent Street around 1850, which is our time period. And when I first like saw this, I try not to look too deep so that like we're all looking together. But I was just kind of like, is Anne in this picture? Like, like, I just want to see Anne.
So Janet said, I recall this scene in Gone with the Wind where Scarlett is a widow at the dance where she's dressed in black, but her feet are dancing behind the booth. Yeah. And you think about it, there comes a point when you're like, okay, I'm all cried out. I'm ready to be happy again. Still got to wear black clothes though.
Here's an ad for Jay's Regent Street, London, morning. Let's
I
see.
just feel
Can
like
I?
this. I mean, I just picture like, I don't know, like Walmart. It's like the 19th century Walmart for all your funerary needs.
Yeah, like are you not sad enough? Come on, we got more stuff to help you with your sad.
Well, I mean, as you're showing these, so I noticed on page 190, she talks about the luxury of woe. And
Hmm.
I mean, this is an exhibition of both wealth and grief in one bolt of fabric. So because if you literally can have enough clothing to manage this extended grief period, according to all of these crazy, I think it's later in the chapter where she gives the how long you have to grieve for a parent versus a second cousin. It's crazy. You have to be wealthy to be able to do this.
But you know what's interesting? It's the same today. Like, not just the cost of funeral stuff to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
but even when people talk about that you were given 3 days bereavement from work, paid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and people are like, oh, you should take more time and this. That's always the question of, well, I don't have the money to take time off work to grieve. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have, so I'm like, well, it's the same thing. Here's the view of Jay's in 1893 and then in 1922,
Huh.
plan for reconstruction.
It's a formidable looking building,
I know it actually kind of
earlier
looks
and
like
in the
like
20s.
well, you know what it looks like is Selfridges, which was one of
Yes,
the first
yes.
like famous department stores.
Mm-hmm,
But can you
absolutely.
imagine an entire department store just for deadness things? Because she does talk. I purposely like glossed it over, but like she does talk in here about funerary hair jewelry, and I was just like, yeah, we've looked at that. All right, I'm like,
Well,
it
I mean,
peeves me out of it.
I have something to share. That's funerary. That is very
Is
close to
it
home.
hair? Is it hair jewelry?
No, it is not hair jewelry. I could not find my hair jewelry. I do have some hair jewelry, but this is a thing that is actually in my shop, and I thought I would share.
Oh.
Um, so let me share it.
Robin said, when my dad was dying, I called into work and told them what was going on. And the next day, my boss called to see if I was going to come into work. Yep, Robin, I think we all probably have a story just like that.
Oops. Oh crud! What did I just do?
What did you just do?
Oops. I moved. How is it that I do these things? You guys, I'm just such a mess sometimes. Okay, here we go.
I just see us on the screen.
Now I know. I'm trying to get this thing to. This is the problem with having 3 screens. There we go. So this is actual funeral or Victorian era jet beaded like dress stuff. So this is,
Dress
just
stuff,
yeah, this would have been
embellishment.
yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
little embellishment and there's a string of beads as well. But these are
And you
jet.
said this is in your shop?
Mhm.
So is this antique or vintage?
This is antique. This is yeah.
Oh. And where did you find this?
Auction lot,
Mm-hmm.
bought a sewing lot. This was in there.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
some of the beads in here are glass, but then all
Mm-hmm.
these ones that are kind of funky looking, those are jet.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and then this is jet. And it's interesting because she said jet is like petrified wood,
Yep.
essentially.
Yep.
But
That's very interesting.
I guess I'd always heard that it was like coal, but
That's what I thought too.
yeah, and I guess it could be burned wood or I don't know. But still, it's interesting and it's soft. It's not cold. The way that you tell is that like if you hold it against your cheek, it does. Glass is cold. Jet will
Mm-hmm.
feel like your body temperature, and it's got this weird lightweight. Like you're holding it and you're like, this should be heavier, and it's not. You're almost like, is this plastic? Like it's got that sort of lack of weight to it. So.
Hmm.
Here's one I thought was interesting, page 191, where she talks about a grace period of 8 days before full mourning had to start.
Yeah.
That's interesting, to allow people to get together their wardrobe. like,
But I think that's along the lines of like, potentially like today we have this quote kind of grace period before a funeral to allow people to travel
mm-hmm,
to get where at this point they don't really have that expectation.
sure.
Oh, Janet says petrified monkey puzzle tree.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
great. I remembered it was some really weird name.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just thought it was interesting that there was a whole like vein of jet in England.
Mm-hmm.
It was a coastal, and I guess I knew, but I guess I kind of thought it was from like coal mining places or something because it was related to coal. Maybe they found it while they were coal mining. I don't know. So
That could make sense.
yeah. She does acknowledge that Queen Victoria did, play a role. So, Yeah, I guess we've kind of already talked about, the fact that, people could either do this if they could afford it, or they went with their one black outfit. I
Or
mean, I
even
guess,
just a black armband, depending on
well,
kind of
and that's
what
the
their
thing. The
station
men could get
was.
away with the armband.
Hmm.
The women didn't get the armband. The women are like,
What else is new? Women just taking the brunt of all the responsibility of things.
yeah. She acknowledged that older women just started wearing black because it's like everybody's dying. I'm gonna have to mourn somebody all the time, so let me just wear black all the time.
Hmm.
Um, and also in here somewhere, and I did mark it, but I know somewhere in here it talked about how it was. I think it wasn't Queen Victoria, I think, but one of the ladies in waiting kind of court
Hmm.
ladies. He was just like, oh, for crying out loud. It's like you might as well just wear mourning clothes all the time.
Yeah, she said they had traveled and got there, and all of a sudden she needs morning clothes, and she only has like one thing.
Mm-hmm. And I
Hmm.
would say that, um, so I think the other interesting thing in here is not so much about the clothing and all that stuff. On page 196 and 197, she talks about how death stalked families frequently. I mean, we know people died. There was no penicillin. People died of simple illnesses. They died of terrible accidents.
We
Children,
weren't washing our hands regularly.
yeah, and I mean, children, high mortality rate. Children don't survive. High mortality rate of women in childbirth. We've got all the things. So people certainly were, you know, just kind of used to it. Not to say they didn't grieve in the same way we do. I mean, I saw that somewhere where like there's this idea that people were so used to losing children that it wasn't as hard for them back then, and I'm like, no, there is plenty of evidence that people grieved their children just as hard back then when they were having to pop out like 13 of them because more than half of them died. They still grieved those children, and
Hmm.
yeah, I don't think any of that's changed. But the one thing that like really hit me in the guts was on 197 where she's talking about, I think specifically about Maria Ballester. When she lost her son, it's weeks and
Hmm.
weeks and weeks later before she's even getting any kind of support from her family. So she's
Hmm.
essentially sitting there grieving alone, I mean, with her husband, and her little community there in Singapore. But like the people I think that would have offered her the most comfort are back in the United States, and it takes so long to get the word to them. And I just remember thinking, I mean, I've lost a number of family members in recent years. And I remember my mom's cousin, when my grandmother died, my mom's cousin told her, I know it's hard right now. This is really difficult. Call me in like 2 months when you need more support because everybody's going to disappear on you. And that's true. People want to,
Hmm.
they're there for you to like, they know they have the sympathy, the empathy. They've been there before. They want to support you, but people got to get back to their lives, And it's that whole thing of like, well, she was only my cousin or she was only my aunt, so I only have to grieve
Hmm.
for this period of time. She was your mother, so you got to grieve for this period of time, and
Well, and
it's
and grief is not linear.
exactly, and it's just one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, how much more you can complicate the process of grief than to not like literally half your family doesn't even know that somebody has died. And I think to myself, the emotions don't change, but how lucky we are now to know, like, if you lose a family member, I mean, certainly you hope you can be there, if somebody was dying, that you could get there in time because we have that ability today. But if somebody dies suddenly, at least you can know right away, if somebody will
Yeah, you
call
can
you.
connect to people fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could get on a plane and be there for a loved one. So, I just thought like, what a hard thing to be grieving and this fresh
Well,
pain.
and back to like the textiles, we don't have Jay's morning warehouse. So it can be a lot harder now to find a black dress.
This is true. This is true.
Like I hear a lot of people that like that's one of the things they can't stand the most because you might have to go to 50 stores to not only find an outfit that doesn't make you want to hurl, but like find one that fits, it's in your size, it's not $7,000. It's, most of the time people just settle for something that
Yeah.
kind of works
Could,
because
could,
they're like,
could you be
I'm
speaking
not.
from experience? And
Oh yeah, that's for
I
sure.
feel like I remember your recent struggle through
Yeah.
multiple stores to find
And
something
that well,
appropriate.
and that wasn't even because that was a big cultural difference. It wasn't for black. I was prepared for black. I was not prepared for
Was it
a whole
white?
other.
You had to do
Yes, it was
white, yeah.
white. Yep, I was not prepared for that, especially in the winter. That's not easy to find.
Yeah, winter whites. So can
Hmm.
we move on to the next chapter because this is my
I
favorite chapter of all
guess.
time?
I
Okay.
guess.
Can we talk about Dolly Varden? Was Dolly Varden one of your topics?
Um, I um I did pull up something for her. I grabbed a Wikipedia article
Okay. I
about
have the
that.
Maryland Center for History and Culture's article about Dolly Varden.
Okay.
So if I may,
I guess if you can figure out how to work your three screens.
I think I got it now. Let's see. Back.
Robin says, I only wear black pants to a funeral. I will not get a full outfit. You know, it's funny, Robin, like a lot of in American culture, we're kind of ditching the absolute black stuff, it seems. I've been to quite a few funerals in the last few years where people are wearing color.
Yeah, I know. For my mother in law's, we didn't have a funeral. She didn't have a funeral. It was just a,
Mhm.
it was her celebration of life, and it was kind of like, please don't wear, buttoned up black stuff. Like, please wear like casual clothes and have fun with it.
Hmm.
She wouldn't have. But anyway, this is a painting of Dolly Varden. Of course, Dolly Varden is
Hmm.
not a real person. She was a character in Charles Dickens, like a book I had literally never heard of that he wrote, and I guess
Yeah.
it was a serialized story that
Hmm.
then became a book, I guess. So she's a character in there, and she's not even a main character. She's like a side character. And I just think it's so interesting that this is 19th century cosplay, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dolly Varden is a little bit of a floozy. I mean, she's basically like from what I could read in these other sources that I looked at, she's the kind of person who like the nouveau riche, she shows up on the scene and she's wearing all this bright gaudy clothing and she like just flouncing in and she don't care. And somebody from, a higher class in, England would have looked at this as being like, I don't know, dressing up at Halloween is like slutty, whatever. I feel like that was kind of the gist I got. That she would have dressed as this character because it is kind of a lower station and was a way that she could like cosplay this.
Hmm.
This was so fascinating to me that this whole cosplay thing is not new. Yeah, and so there's all of this stuff. This is the sheet music. Um, there's literally sheet music talking about her, and I mean, just how fascinating that they just went nuts over this.
Yeah,
Um,
the article that I pulled up is specifically about like the costume of her,
mhm.
like and people making
Yeah, so
costume
the
out of it.
Polonaise, and I also pulled up some info about the Polonaise, because
Hmm.
this was a very, in addition to the Watteau pleat that's a robe à la française, this is the Polonaise, which I never knew, but it literally means Polish. Polonaise is Polish.
Huh.
I don't know why, but oh, can you not
Could they
open
have
the
been
chat?
wearing that kind of dress at the time and that's where it came from?
I don't know. But this is what they're known for. It's that overskirt that's like scrunched up.
Hmm.
And again, it's very so. Yeah, this was this, and so this is Maryland, Maryland Center, and this one I thought this was. This like makes her look like such
Oh yeah, that's in the Wikipedia article
I
I
know, this
grabbed.
is like, look at her. She thinks she's being somebody, but she's wearing all
Well,
of this
and
like,
like that bustle is so massive, it looks like she's literally bending
I
over.
know it does. And I mean, just looking at this as she's portrayed, I'm thinking to myself, this is like, a fancy person today going like, oh my God, look at her. She's wearing Louis Vuitton and Prada and, Chanel all at the same time. And that shit does not match. Like, who does she
Well,
think she
what
is?
what is that thing on the left like judging her? Is that like a goat?
It's a dog.
Oh, it kind of looked
There's a
like a
tear.
goat with like a
Yeah.
human face.
Yeah, there's a tear in the page, but it's got a
Oh.
very, it does have a very human look to it. So, yeah.
And definitely, and even that little guy hiding in the corner, like behind him, he's totally judging her.
He's like looking at his glasses like, look at this skank.
Yeah, like check out that booty.
This delighted me to no end when I looked at all of
It's
this. So
literally like it was literally like a butt table.
that big home.
Yeah, it's a butt table.
Yeah. So yeah, that was fun. Um, so I have something else even more exciting to share, I think, than Dolly Varden.
Well,
But
does it
Dolly
have to do
Varden,
with Dolly Varden?
Dolly Varden, no.
Well, let me show my Dolly Varden
Okay.
costume before you move on to that. I have to open it first. That would be helpful.
As
Yeah,
you're
it's got
looking
a
at that,
couple of things.
I want to skip. I'll just skip ahead to say when they're talking about so when Victorian Albert dressed up, yeah, it was Victorian Albert dressed up for their costume ball thing, and they were dressed as
I have something for that too.
Queen Philippa and Edward III, and so this is supposed to be medieval costume, but it says they managed to channel some medieval qualities whilst adhering steadfastly to the contemporary 1840s silhouette. This is just like when you see like any kind of western that was made in like the 60s. They all
Mm-hmm.
have like 60s hair. They have bangs. Like nobody nobody in that time period dressed like that or had their hair like that. It's so funny.
Yeah, so this one had some variations of her dress because this one's
Mm-hmm.
specifically about the costume. And I have only ever heard, I guess that I thought of quadrille as a dance.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something else as
Well, I'm
well?
wondering what we're looking at here. This is sheet music. So waltz, gallop, Scottish, polka.
But this particular thing is also talking about the costume of it.
Right, but again, I guess what I'm saying is this is the cover. That was the cover of some sheet
So it
music.
was a quadrille dance. Okay.
Yeah, it
That's
was
why I
music for a
thought like it
quadrille.
was
Yeah.
just, but yeah, here's your girl again.
Oh, here's
And
another
then,
version of her.
yeah, and then this one. Yeah, because this article specifically is about, yeah, the
Yeah. What
costume.
a tacky trollop Dolly Varden was. I'm gonna go as Dolly
Hmm.
Varden this year for Halloween.
Well, that and let me grab two because you were just talking about Queen Victoria because I have something for that.
Oh yeah, this
Uh,
I didn't look anything up about this. I thought it was just interesting.
yeah, well, I remembered the episode from the show Victoria that where they is that ball. God, can't stand all the ads on stuff. Good Lord. Okay. So, this is a whole thing about it, but the painting still survives. That's the painting from their
Ah,
ball.
okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which
I mean, I could
I
see
just,
I could see the medieval influence and the fact that it is
oh
not
yeah.
at all accurately medieval.
Yep.
Wow, that's really cool. I wouldn't have
Isn't
guessed that
that
there was a
cool?
painting. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed there was a
Look at the
painting.
shoes. They were like, let's make sure we get these shoes as pointy as we possibly can.
Well, and that's accurate. Medievally.
Medievally. Yeah. Um, let's see. There was something else I think that oh, and what survives are the drawings that Victoria made to plan out their attire.
Yeah, that definitely like that sort of cinched in waist. Like that's not medieval.
Hmm. Yeah, sketch by Queen Victoria of herself. That is so freaking cool. There's one of Albert too. Sorry, I'm trying not to make people sick. I love what is this hand? Like like
Because
this. It's
hands
just
are
like
hard. Hands are hard, as
yeah,
AI
but look at
knows.
she nailed the face. And remember what Mary Ann Font said, faces are hard.
I don't know. The face is kind of weird too, but
The face is exponentially better than the hand.
I like his
But
shoes. She did a good job there.
but yeah, there's this whole, whole picture. Oh, here's the scene from Victoria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a really good show, dude. Like, I don't know. But then again, you also haven't watched Downton Abbey, so have you watched Selfridges?
I have watched Selfridges, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that was the end of that. But I thought that was really cool, especially when I'm like, oh my God, the sketches survive. Her dress, however, does not survive their whole costume, which I'm like, how do you lose clothing by one of the most famous monarchs in history? Um,
Well, I mean, I'm guessing like I don't know. I guess especially back then, I would assume there was probably a little bit of pillaging when.
well, but considering like the Victorian Albert Museum, like I'm just surprised it didn't automatically end up there immediately. But it makes me really sad.
So can we talk about Ardern Holt? This
I
had to be.
guess.
So first of all, as long as I was studying costume and just researching, looking for um, both, vintage and antique sources, or current stuff, never ran across Ardern Holt. And make sure I'm sharing the right one. So I was shocked. Hyperallergic covered it, but I also have a link to the full blown thing. But this is the book, and look, this book is literally just an alphabetical list of things you could dress up as, and some of them appear to be like just utilizing.
Which I'm sorry, which particular one big book did you say this was?
This is Ardern Holt, fancy dress described or what to wear at fancy balls,
Okay.
1887. So I want to say she even mentions this one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's everything from like Lady Macbeth, a hornet, the concept of air, England. I mean, it's like just this crazy random stuff. Air, like air. You would want to have a white tulle or gauze dress made with several skirts, one over the other, or blue over white, as light and gossamer as possible. I mean, it's just, and this, I had to look up what this was. Incroyable. It's actually a French word, and it means like incorrigible, I guess, kind of, but apparently that's a term for a French dandy. So I think that's what this
Oh.
woman is dressed as a French dandy. And this like
Robin says
frock
this
coat
book is
thing.
intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
The sea anemone with the bowl with water and fish on your head.
Yes, yes, like a literally. I mean, how I'm very curious to know what that looks like. We'll have to find it. Um, the Dowager of Bryony. Do you want to be her for Halloween? I mean, Diana, England, Dresden, China. Like it's like he just started throwing things in a bowl and was like, we're just gonna keep thinking of stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just a magpie. The one that, and I apologize, I'm just gonna scroll like crazy. This is the one that bothered me. Now this is later on. This is 1883. This is in the United States, but they talk about Kate Fearing Strong was a guest of Alva Vanderbilt's party, and she literally had um, not just a actual taxidermied cat on her head,
Oh,
but her dress, the trims and ornaments on her dress are cat fur and cat parts. And supposedly the dress itself had cat tails, like down.
ew.
Yes. And look at her. Just look at her. Oh, and she had a little cat collar. Like, she
Okay.
sucks. But yeah, this was so fascinating. And so this it's in the I think it's available through the public domain review. I'll make sure Jill has the links. But you can literally look at this. There is also another one I found. I don't think I still. Oops. These stupid things. There's another one I found that says chats about costume, which was just I think it's the same period of time, and it was reprinted by Dover. So I don't
Hmm.
think this one's been reprinted. And it's I looked to see if I could find like a actual copy of it, and it's one of those rare books. It's like $100 to $200 a copy.
Oh, mhm. I
But the
did when I was looking for
yeah.
stuff, I found quite a few kind of more academic related things that were very expensive. Very much what we would be interested in looking at, but
Hmm.
very
But
not
this,
for
yeah,
table.
this you can literally page through it,
Hmm.
and just see. And I'm like, I gotta read this because it just sounds insane.
Ooh, look at that. That looks like the Queen of
Yeah,
Hearts.
it says that's Marguerite de Valois. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so this would be, Queen Elizabeth the First sort of era.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I just, I knew that costume balls were a thing, right? But I guess it just shocked me to see this, I mean, and just all of this. Yeah. So I won't.
That there was like so much like literature about it.
Well, yeah, and just, I mean, I think about today, we love a good cosplay today. And think about all the books we have at our disposal. Like, you want to make some fake armor for your cosplay? There's a book about that.
That's
So there
true.
was also in the 19th century. I got so excited when I found this book. I'm like, so cool.
That's true. That's true. So
Um,
I'm just curious here because we still have chapters 16 and 17. I mean,
well,
not that
what
there's
I
a
was
whole
going to
lot going
say,
on in
I
16.
feel like chapter 16 we might as well skip because it's like nothing happened.
Yeah, it's literally just they went to China for a couple of years. We don't know anything about
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
And isn't it weird how she didn't collect any of the fabrics? Which
Just
it
one swatch from Adam's
Yeah,
vest.
and it's surprising to me, but I guess I kind of wondered if leaving Singapore and going to China maybe was not a happy time for her. I mean, I'm assuming like she'd been in Singapore for 7 years and she'd probably, she'd furnished a house, she had friends, and, maybe to her it was kind of like, oh, here we go again, and I'm not going home. I'm going on to this next place. And, maybe she was thinking, it took me this long to get set up and comfortable in Singapore. What's it going to be like there? And, maybe she just didn't have the experience in China that she did in Singapore.
Well, I was thinking something along the same lines of like maybe if they knew it was going to be short because 2 years at that time is actually kind of short. When you think about how long a sea voyage is, maybe she didn't have the chance to make friends,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't have anything coming from them, and maybe she didn't have any new garments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like
and
maybe she was just
yeah,
wearing garments she already had.
and from the perspective, I mean, Shanghai was far. I mean, I guess it was far more. I mean, even though what Kate Strasdin said that like the what it looked like, it wasn't. You still got lots of rural farmland and all that kind of stuff, but it still was a major like port, like and so I'm kind of wondering if it also was just the sort of thing like when she arrived in Singapore, very small community, and I'm not saying she was the belle of the ball, but I mean, you're dealing with a small community. It's much more comfortable. I think about like my little town. You come to my little town, neighbors are very welcoming, all that. But if I went into the city, it's it's more chaotic.
Hmm.
It's urban. I'm not necessarily going to trust everybody right away.
Hmm.
Like that kind of thing. I guess that's just sort of how I took it. That and it was only 2 years, and you know, but also he owned a place there. He owned some sort of like home or building or something.
Yeah, I mean, it did say that like he does still keep his hand in the commerce there, but that they go back. Janet, by the way, when you were looking at the book with the magpies, she said magpies are mystical in England. They have a nursery rhyme about them, and that would be a cool costume.
Very cool.
All right,
Yeah.
Janet, you let us see pictures when you get that costume together. Should we have like a quilt nerding ball where we like dress up in costume? Well, I mean, I was gonna say like the people that are gonna get the most excited are Stephanie because she's the only one that probably knows how to make a costume
I
out of
love
any of that.
costumes. I love costumes. Um, also, I mean, kind of going back to the costumes, she mentioned, I think there was a quote from somebody who was kind of like, oh, it's the costume balls in Italy are so much classier because the English people put on these masquerades and then they do nasty things to each other. They gossip about each other because you're wearing a mask, or play tricks on each other, that kind of thing. And we don't do that in Italy. In Italy, we're very elegant and buttoned up, and that I thought that was kind of interesting too because the masquerade in Italy, of course, goes way back.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, masquerading in the United States and England, maybe was a newer thing and was more frivolous, I suppose, than the because the masquerades of Italy, I mean, that like the Medici's and all that stuff. I mean, that kind of stuff was like political intrigue. Whereas
I was gonna
I feel
say,
like, yeah, these balls, these masquerade balls were more of just like, these are frivolous. These are, women showing up to be seen and yada yada. Like,
well, and it's funny because like if you go back to Queen Victoria's masquerade ball there, the whole reason she put that on was because she was trying to save the industry of the silk weavers of Spitalfields.
right.
And everyone, I was blown away when I saw in there that the 2,000 guests were invited. I didn't know it was that much. But everyone was required to wear Spitalfield silk.
Ah, okay.
And so like that, it's like while maybe here it would be, frivolous and this and that, there could also be, actual, I don't want to say, it's not necessarily a charitable event in that, like a patroning kind of event, sponsoring, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what they would have called it then. If you do want to like, so my question was going to be, do we want to move on to home comforts or do we want to save home comforts for next time?
Well, I mean, we could save it for next time. I only had like one major thing called out in here.
Hmm. I
But
have a couple of things to look at. So if you want to
yeah.
save that for next time, we can. But I was going to say, do you want to end then with my video
Yeah, why don't we
of
do that? Yeah, why don't we do that?
it's 7 minutes and it's 100 gowns from the 1800s. So they
I
start
think,
much earlier. They start at
yeah.
1800, which is earlier than we're looking at, but we do go through.
I think I know what
Um,
this video is.
oh, have you seen it?
I'm pretty sure I know which video is, yeah.
Well, aren't you just
Well, no, it's a good,
special?
I'm saying if it's the one I think it is, it's a very good video. So,
I certainly, okay, hold on a second. I certainly hope so. Okay, let me get myself situated here. Okay. Share sound.
yeah, I know we mentioned when Robin talked about the sea anemone dress, but yeah, like I could just picture that, and I'm sure it's in that book. We'll just have to find it. Um, but yeah,
Is this the video?
um, maybe I'm not sure.
Okay.
We will be looking at 100 original dresses for every year in the 19th century. Beginning in 1800, neoclassical designs defined fashion for both men and women. A lightweight white cotton muslin gown with an empire waist began to become the dominant style.
I am so glad that we do not live in an era that wears this much white because I have so much anxiety over
Yeah.
getting it dirty, and
Yeah.
they did not
And
have
that
stock.
period, yes, during that period, these types of dresses, I mean, this is obviously a gown, but even your everyday dresses in this time period, they were light colors. They were pastels and whites. And it's just like, how did they keep that stuff clean?
Um,
You swanned about and you didn't do anything. That's how you kept it clean.
you, you spent the day on the chaise longue.
Yeah.
Women took inspiration from classical antiquity and desired to look like the ancient Romans and Greeks. Dresses slowly began to see more detail work on the bodice and the
See, so like I feel like we've already kind of seen some fabric starting to get into this particular kind of print, even though this is early. Um, but this, I feel like we've seen some things kind of like this.
skirt of the garments. As time went on as well, we see stiffer materials being used for the dresses. By the 1810s, we see additional detail developing on the dresses. The trains, which were popular in the last decade, have vanished, and instead the hemline is raised. There is more detail and color to be found in this decade.
Oh, so pretty.
That was pretty. Yeah.
Sleeves also begin to take on a puffed shape, which remains during this decade and the one after.
That thing on the back, that's a Watteau pleat. That was in that last one. Ah, here come them sleeves. Just get
The
bigger and bigger.
1820s is known as a transitional period between the more modest 1810s to the more exuberant 1830s.
Those dresses are very pretty.
As the decade rears towards the 1830s, the decoration and ornamentation on the dresses grows, as well as the sleeve size.
Yeah, they don't start, they start not messing around with those sleeves.
You
There we
may have
go.
also noticed that the waist is dropping towards the natural position.
Here we
There's
go.
that big old leg of mutton. That's really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
In the 1830s, the skirts on the dresses begin to get wider,
Also the
and as the
neckline
decade
is
goes on, the
gorgeous.
sleeves move towards the bottom of the garments, where the neckline is in a V shape and is typically off the shoulder.
And it's very hard to move your arms with these. You can't do this in those dresses.
Yeah, so I feel like this kind of fabric print here is something we've been seeing because now we're in Anne's time frame now.
By the end of the 1830s, the over-the-top motifs and enormous sleeves on the dresses begin to quickly fade.
Like, screw you, big sleeves. Ooh, I like that.
Now, modest and mindful dressing was fashionable.
Wow, that's very
Garments in the 1840s have sparse decoration, narrow sleeves, a high neckline, and a larger skirt. The waist ended in a V point, and for evening wear, the looks were always off the shoulder. We see that by the end of the 1840s, however, the sleeves begin to widen, instead of being tight when it comes to daytime looks.
Ooh,
Oh, that fabric.
pretty. Yeah.
The 1850s saw the invention of the crinoline, and the skirts began to get wider and wider and have more feminine decoration on them.
So the crinoline cages. Your hoop skirt.
In the daytime, women's dresses had high necklines and large pagoda sleeves. By the end of the 1850s, there was a shift in volume towards the back of the dress.
There's a shift in volume towards your butt.
Yes, and that's the first bustle area. Yeah.
Robin had said, I can't wear white. If I do, I'll spill food and drink on it. Like,
Janet says she's past wearing Halloween costumes, alas, but that's okay. That's okay. I'll take one for the team. I will wear costumes until I die.
ooh, that's pretty.
These are all also like evening gowns.
The
These are
beginning
not,
of the
like, this is not
1860s
daytime
is
dress
much
for the most
like
part.
the 1850s, but the skirts are larger and there is more feminine ornamentation on them. This is where the skirts reach
Oh
their
my
wide.
goodness.
Yeah, I mean this is your Scarlett O'Hara type stuff.
Yeah, like
But
this
these-
is like cream puff. Well, that's why I had looked this up around when we were doing like the cost, like in between the costume and whatever we were talking about before the costume. But
Mourning.
was it?
Yes, the mourning
Sure.
chapter is before the costume chapter.
Greatest point around 1863, where some measured around 15 feet in circumference.
Yes, 15 feet. Insane. You can't get through doorways. Of course, you can't get through doorways
like
wearing
that.
paniers either. You
This
have to
is
turn
very.
sideways to get through a doorway in a panier.
Oh yeah. Have you
this
ever
is-
watched?
Go ahead.
Have you ever watched the Dutch the movie The Duchess about the Duchess of Devonshire?
I don't think so.
It's Keira Knightley. It's very, very good. But in that
Oh,
she hears
yeah.
things and she has to turn sideways to get into the door.
Yeah. This is the kind of dress I think when people think of like Civil War fashion in the United States, this is what I think people think of.
Oh yeah, no. So a few of the other ones we were looking at before were I was like, wow, it's very Little Women.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like those kind of layered pagoda sleeves and those kind of trimmings and stuff. I mean, you definitely no wonder they made ballrooms so big. They need the room for the 15-foot dresses. No kidding.
Yeah, they'll be like, you go to the door. Sorry, ladies, we're full right now. You need for someone to leave because there's no more room for
You're
shirts.
like, you're trying to stand shoulder to shoulder, but you're really just standing dress to dress.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever seen any of those funny? I want to say it was like in the movie Bridesmaids or something. We've ever seen anybody in one of these giant hoop skirt wedding dresses, and then they just flop down on the couch, and then the skirt goes boom.
Yep.
You could not really sit in these dresses. Anything with like a big bustle, like they didn't like just flop down on the couch. They had either they didn't sit or they literally had in some cases, there was an invention. And I don't know that that was very widespread, but this invention where it was literally like a little seat underneath her bustle that you could like chunk and sit down on it under your dress. I've seen the patent and everything, but some of these also had a collapsible element to them, so you could kind of smash it up against your rear end and then sit down. So,
God, that's a lot of work.
can you imagine? I mean, of course, we think about us today, the kind of shoes we wear, and skirts that leave nothing to the imagination. That you also can't sit in those. So,
Yeah, we just made them so skin tight now. You're like the immovable object. Like if you go to sit, it's just like,
yeah.
moving on.
Towards the end of the 1860s, we see the complete emphasis towards the back of the dress and a flattening towards the front. Dresses at this time also featured more geometrical prints and less feminine motifs.
Ooh, I like that.
The 1870s, however, brought back exuberant styles and tastes. It was then that the first bustle type was created,
Yep.
where a complete emphasis of volume was in order for the back of the dress.
Ooh, that's pretty.
But quickly an opposing style came into fashion called the princess line or the natural form line, where bustles were gotten rid of, and instead a small bum pad was worn over the back of the dress. A form-fitting and snug silhouette became very popular. This silhouette continued into the early part of the 1880s.
You know what blows my mind? Their styles change very dramatically decade to decade. And like, what if you hate the current decade's style?
Well, if you're playing the class system game, it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. You dress in it, or you're going to be an outcast.
So like, but like, what if your figure makes it look like crap?
You pad yourself to make it work.
I know, but like some people like just no matter what, they just look like crap in something, like there are just certain things that no matter what in the world, I could never wear because it just looks like crap.
Well,
So
you've
like,
certainly seen photographs of people at this time looking like crap. I certainly have. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. Was there some book? Was it a book we read, or it was something I was looking at, and it showed a picture of a couple, one of those like pictures where obviously they had to stay still for a really long time, and her dress was clearly homemade because like the plaids didn't match and the collar was kind of I can't remember what book I saw this in or where I saw it, but I was like, they were certainly not perfect back then. And again, you look at this stuff, this is high fashion. This is like today looking at like, Prada and all of the major fashion brand, like the big fashion brands. This isn't the kind of stuff women were walking around in most of the time.
I mean, even wealthy women can think something looks like crap.
Yeah, I know. But,
So like
but
that's
it
why
is
I'm
what
just
it is.
like when you think about now, I feel like our style has definitely changed for sure, but I don't think they change as drastically as these styles change. Do you think so?
I don't know. I mean, I just look at some of the things that we were wearing, I don't know. I guess because we're not wearing dresses with specific cut, we're, jeans. I think jeans are more telling of how.
Well, and we're also not wearing like completed outfits, like, right? Like this is a whole outfit. They don't do necessarily a lot of like mixing and matching. So everyone's creating their own outfit and it's just elements of things that they're putting together. But like,
Yeah.
man, especially when we get into like the holy moly sleeves, like they really do change super drastically decade to decade. Okay, sorry, rant over.
But quickly, the bustle came back into fashion, and it was more extreme than ever, creating a shelf-like protrusion from the back of the dress.
Right on the back of your butt.
The 1880s featured beautiful colors and details on the garments, and towards the end of the decade, the bustle is completely gone away with.
You're like, get your butt out of here.
Yeah.
As
Well,
we
the
move
second
into
bustle
the
era
1890s, we see
was
an A-line.
more extreme. The second bustle
Oh
era,
yeah.
and yeah, I mean, it was very short. It was very extreme. And I disagree with the date she's got first bustle era. It was started much earlier than what she's got in here.
I wonder if the second was like people were like, okay, enough with that because everyone just looked like they were like bent over everywhere they went. Robin says, with our conversation before, like you're not having to dress to the nines several times a day. Yes, that's
Yeah.
true.
Mm-hmm.
Although their loungewear, we would still consider dressing to the nines
Right? Oh
at
my
this
gosh,
point.
yes.
And then Janet said, we're more individualistic. Yes, exactly. Okay, we're just about done here.
Skirt becoming more popular, and beautiful details on the dresses, but more often than not, the dresses were more plain, showing the fabric off more than the details. And it's at this time that enormous puffy sleeves become the height of fashion.
But the neckline's different. The neckline's not the same anymore.
And as the decade progresses, those sleeves become smaller and smaller. Tell me in the comments
And
down
I
below.
would also say that the puffy sleeves, she's got them ending earlier than they ended. So that puffy sleeve goes to the Gibson girls also into the early 1900s. Maybe not to that like ridiculous, but they did still have those puffy sleeves into the 1900s.
I wonder though, but like the Gibson girl era, isn't that where we start to get into having the
Shirtwaist, yeah.
sorry, what did you say?
A shirtwaist, like blouses.
Yeah. Yeah, like
They still
I
have
wonder if
puffy
that's
sleeves.
why I wonder if that's why she does it ending because it's full dress and not when we get into the
Yeah,
two.
I mean it could be, but still, the Gibson girls had those puffy sleeves. So,
But I feel like one of the things I liked about this concept was I feel like it gave some life to just these tiny little swatches
mm-hmm.
that we were like, not that we're seeing exactly, although I think there were a couple of them where I was like, I really think we might have seen that fabric. But that's the one thing that stinks about just having swatches is you're not getting any real life visual of stuff.
Yeah, being able to tell exactly what things look like.
Mm-hmm.
Not in New York City, according to the costumes in the Gilded Age show. I haven't seen that either.
Oh, that's also very good.
I love, I read a book, oh gosh, was it called Witches of New York, I think? And yes, it was about women who were practicing witchcraft, but it takes place in the Gilded Age in New York City, and they talk about like the Egypt, like there's that this what do they call it? Not a basilisk.
Was a basilica?
No, it's like a thing that is shaped like the Washington Monument.
Oh,
Is that a basilisk? I keep thinking basilisk
obelisk?
is
Is it obelisk?
obelisk. Yes, a basilisk. A basilisk.
I was like, are you saying
is the snake in
basilica?
Harry Potter? Yes, an obelisk. Yes. So there was like a big thing about the obelisk coming to New York and this whole Egypt craze at that point, and that was so fascinating. Like, because I think that it was historical fiction. Even, I mean, obviously the part about witches was very fiction, but all the other stuff I think was really accurate, and I thought that was pretty cool. One thing I forgot to mention that I know I had highlighted with costumes in talking about Ardern Holt's book. This is on page 209. It says, the descriptions were detailed. For the character, all is not gold that glitters. The text suggests dress of gold-colored satin, gold stars, and gold lace. Crescents and stars cover the front of the costume, and a cap of cloth of gold is adorned with diamonds. Well, it sounds like a lot of that glitters. So... So I guess that's the point of like, no, it's not gold, it's diamonds.
Fair enough.
I thought that was really funny.
So,
Yeah, I'll make sure Jill has the links to put in the description. So I know you guys will like to look at that book. I was so excited when I found it. I can't.
And definitely when you put the links into Slack, make sure you leave me like a little like description of what it is.
Okay.
So that I don't have to figure all that out. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess we'll save 17 for next time. And then the end is nigh. This book, I feel like this book went pretty fast.
Yeah, I think it did. It's a little different than I expected it to be, but I'm still enjoying it.
Mhm.
I think there's been some really interesting little bits and pieces in here. And I'll
Oh, I
see what
mean,
I can do.
she's done so much research into so many different things
Yeah.
to talk about. And also like while looking at the swatches or the dresses or things like that, of course, in the back of my mind, I'm always like, oh, how much of that ended up in a quilt at some point in time? You know, whether it be a crazy quilt or some other kind of quilt or whatever, like I can always pull it back to like, huh, I wonder if that covered somebody's bed. Especially once we get into 17 and we start talking about like home furnishing stuff because we
Hmm.
know like people are making quilts out of like home deck fabric and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I have some neat things to look at. Yeah. Well, on that note, there will be some like official social media announcement posts of like this lecture with Pam, and there'll be official links to like sign up for it and stuff like that. We just didn't have that ready yet. But we didn't want to leave people hanging that that was coming. And also I didn't mention earlier that by the time we're done with Pam's book, Portable Patchwork, we will do an author interview with her as well. So there's lots of things going on for her stuff.
We're putting a lot on Pam, which is why we're like, all right, we'll pay you for some of it.
Well, and this lecture too is kind of a test to see how well lecture hosting goes for us. And if it goes well, then we will do more of them. So if there's things and people that you know that are doing interesting lectures that you think might be fun for us to do, you know, privately as a group, then you should let us know.
Yeah, and yeah, if there's anybody you would like us to like go after, we will. I'm to the
Go
point where
after
I
them.
have no shame anymore. I will say, look, our people have spoken. They want you to come lecture for us. So. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness.
Oh,
So,
hi LJ. She just said enjoy your
hey.
interviews immensely.
Aw,
Yeah,
thank
we're pretty
you.
fun to hang out. What can I say?
So Janet said the author of the swatch book showed much restraint concerning entering any other information.
Oh, Anne.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Anne
mean
did
that's kind of frustrates me with Anne, and I don't know. I guess maybe in her mind she thought, well, this is a scrapbook for me. I'll remember all this. I know what these
Well,
things
and
mean.
for all we know, I mean, maybe she kept a real diary.
Yeah, it could be.
So in her mind, like there's enough context going around, but obviously whenever the swatch book left her presence or whoever's
Hmm.
presence, you know,
Yeah,
things
for
weren't kept
sure.
together. But man, could you imagine if someone found an actual diary of hers in some old dusty bookshop somewhere?
We'd find out what happened in China.
I know, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna finally go eat some dinner. And I
yeah.
think you are too.
I had hoped to sneak in a few bites before we started, and it didn't work out. So,
Oh. Well then, on that note, have a good rest of your week.
yeah. Have a good night, y'all. Mwah!
Bye.